Hello and welcome to Media Lit, where we treat each piece of media like great literature. I'm your host, Randy Elaine, and joining me as always, it's the king of the jungle. It's Chris Ingersoll. Chris, how you doing tonight?
And so good, Randy. Thank you for introing us as always. I'm like riding off the high of taking my daughter to her first ever Bruins game earlier today. I know we like to keep these
Yeah.
things fairly evergreen, but that's just like I'm living on it right now, living on that energy. So stoked to take that energy into this chat tonight.
Yeah, so on Instagram, it looked like you were both having an absolute blast. You got to thank a beloved uncle, which was incredible. So I'm so glad you got to share that with your daughter. Really great stuff.
Yeah, season ticket holder, my best buddy Ryan, and he was kind enough to give us some preseason tickets. What about you? How was your Sunday?
I had a great Sunday, and I'm gonna step on your toes here a little bit, Chris, because you're gonna introduce our topic a little bit more formally, but I can tell our viewers that we are in the realm of Tarzan. And again, today I spent the day closing up my above ground swimming pool. And that wouldn't normally be so relevant, except for the fact that my swimming pool is a retro Johnny Weissmuller brand swimming pool, uh, the OG on-screen Tarzan. So it seems only appropriate that I was spending so much time poolside today.
Absolutely appropriate. Were there no piranha in the pool though?
Not a one,
Good,
not a
good, good.
single piranha. The water was like very nicely treated before I closed it up. Nothing questionable about the water. So I
Good.
felt safe. I felt secure. Life was good. But listen, Chris, we're going to talk about this really fun topic, but I'm even more excited to talk about who we have joining us here today.
Yeah, buddy.
As you listen to this episode, you've most recently heard him on Media Lit on our TGIF episode. But we have incredibly special guest, Case Aiken. He is the general manager of the Certain Point of View podcast network. He is the host of Men of Steel. He is the host of Another Pass. He is a longtime podcaster and someone who helped me get one of my first guest appearances on podcasts. So I always love to shout him out for that. Well, Case Aiken, welcome, and how are you tonight?
Ooh, 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 wow. No, thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you for having me here. I am thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled to be subjecting the two of you to tonight's movie because I love it. I think it is a near perfect movie, and I am going to articulate why in tonight's episode.
Can't wait to hear it. For the listeners at home, for the podlings, of course, you saw the episode title. I'm sure you've gleaned things by now, but for anybody who doesn't know,
Hmm.
that was anybody who doesn't speak gorilla. Case was just saying that Jane stays with Tarzan, a quote from the seminal 1999 classic Tarzan from Disney Animation Studios, directed by Chris Buck and Kevin Lima. This thing was a big deal in '99, and it remains, my gosh, it holds up. We'll say that. I know we'll get into it further, but great film.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Chris grew up with this film. Case has a deep love and affection for this film that we're going to get into. But I actually watched it for the first time. I didn't miss this film on purpose. The summer of '99, that was just between my freshman and sophomore years of high school. This was a big coming of age summer for me. I think I probably also saw The Phantom Menace more than once that same summer, if I am not mistaken. But no, I was away doing like a stay on a college campus for the week program, making friends outside of my local sphere, feeling like a man of the world. So I guess I just could not get myself over to a Disney movie that summer. But I'm so happy I was able to come to it as an adult now. Now, if you are like me and you missed Tarzan, or maybe you haven't seen it since 1999, I'm going to hit you with my summary. And then, as always, I'm going to give Chris, in case, a chance to jump in. Maybe I mischaracterized something. Maybe there was something essential to understanding the film that I did not center in my synopsis. But let's see how I do. Here we go. Tarzan and his parents survive a shipwreck and live out a brief colonial daydream in a Swiss family treehouse before a leopard named Sabor infiltrates their hidden paradise and kills Tarzan's parents. A local gorilla, Kala, also loses her child to the hungry leopard. Kala's despair leads her toward the cries of the abandoned Tarzan, and she decides to raise him as her own, despite alpha male Kerchak's protestations. Tarzan turns out to be the little gorilla that could, and overcomes his black sheep status while collecting a found family that includes his wisecracking gorilla cousin and an obsessive compulsive elephant. Tarzan hones his skills as he grows into a cunning warrior and tree surfer. He defeats Sabor in combat and nearly earns Kerchak's approval. Unfortunately, colonialism arrives in the form of biologist Archimedes Q. Porter, his budding biologist daughter Jane, and their guide, king of the Victorian manosphere, Clayton. Tarzan is fascinated to find creatures like him, and he becomes smitten with Jane and the world of technology and possibility she shares with him. Eventually, Kala reveals the truth of her son's past, and he struggles to reconcile the life he lost with the one he has come to love. His desire to hold on to this new human connection leads him to reveal the secret location of his gorilla family. This betrayal not only puts Tarzan at odds with Kerchak and the clan, but it also enables Clayton to kick his secret plan into high gear. He isn't there to support a scientific expedition. He is there to collect specimens and blindly lay waste to the ecosystem. In the end, Tarzan saves the day, earns Kerchak's respect, convinces Jane to abandon her life as a colonizer, and he even gets a full time father in law in the deal. So, folks, that's Tarzan 99. Anything you'd like to add or reframe?
Case?
Well, I think you did a perfect job summarizing the beats of this movie.
Mhm.
And I especially love the emphasis on the colonialism in human form that is Clayton. It One thing that I want us to talk about
Hmm.
that like is my thesis that this movie is one of the best examples of a 3 act structure I've ever seen. It is structured as in its own way, a nod to the serials of classic Tarzan films,
Hmm.
and so you could break it down into 3 serials that each yes and the way a proper serial does, at the end of each sequence, as a handoff to the next one, but you get this very clear break of when, Tarzan defeats Sabor and almost gets that acceptance, and you get the almost moment of Kerchak accepting him
Hmm.
there, and then the gunshot, and
Yeah.
everyone leaves. That's the exact break into 2. And
Hmm.
then and we open on Tarzan investigating a sound, and it's you could see a short film just starting this way. And then
Hmm.
Tarzan accepts his human role. He dons the clothing of his father and walks off into the night with his mother saying goodbye, Tarzan. And then we open with him like meeting opening act 3 with him accepting the transition into humanity,
Hmm.
and going on the vessel to like leave his people, like, and in each one of these we get an antagonist. We get Sabor as the antagonist in the first act. Kerchak is the antagonist of the second act, and then Clayton is the antagonist of the third act, or as we said, colonialism. But I just think it's such wonderful structure, and it is just astounding that this movie, which is, you know, based on a bit of Pulp Fiction from but really
Yeah.
popular Pulp Fiction. Like, I think people forget that Tarzan, as a property, used to be so popular that there is a town in California named after Tarzan.
Hmm.
That's something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Case, it's funny that you jumped into that because it's the one thing I was gonna comment on Randy's synopsis was that, first and foremost, grateful that you called out Tantor for, his obsessive compulsive nature, but also just sometimes the synopsis is, like, really broad, and it can be kinda brief because you can hit the main beats of a story, more easily. This one was packed because you kinda had to,
Hmm.
because there are these 3 really distinct portions of the film, like, you couldn't have done the synopsis without hitting each of those 3 and summarizing each one, pretty pretty completely, so great synopsis, buddy.
Yeah, at least in terms of our recording timeline, our most recent previous synopsis was the film Tar. Uh, beautiful Academy Award contending film. That was easier for me to summarize than Tarzan.
This double feature for us, for the podlings at home, I know, like, these things don't release in real time, and we try not to talk too much about the weird podcasting chronology, but Randy and I are doing our, like, double feature this week of Tar and Tarzan together, so I picture if it
Mm.
were a theater double feature, it would be like Tar/Zan with the accent over the A.
Mhm.
Um, Anywho, well, we're gonna talk more about this film as a film, but first, here at Media Lit, we have to establish our personal connections to the
Beautiful.
media. Randy, I know it's a first watch for you, but I'm excited for Case and I to be able to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, I always love these episodes where I am the only one who is new to the property, and I get to kind of kick back, ask a few questions, and figure out, what this movie meant in Chris's life and our guest's life, and that's what we're going to do here tonight. So I've got a few questions for each of my panelists tonight, but I'm going to go to you, Case Aiken, first because you suggested this film, and you have a long love affair with this film. I know at the very least, way back in the early to mid 2000s, you put together an early fan edit set to some Jimmy Eat World music for Tarzan. So, why did you love this movie so much? How did it make it into your early sort of film experimentations when you were on the cutting edge of fandom back then?
Well, so I don't remember if I saw this in theaters or not. But I
Hmm.
was because I think it was that same summer for me as it was for you, Randy,
Hmm.
where like Phantom Menace was out there. I remember I was a lifeguard at the time, so I was working, which was nice because I had money, but I also didn't necessarily have enough time to go to movies
Hmm.
uh very frequently. Um so I can't remember if I saw it in theaters, but I was always a fan of Tarzan serials and, like, old Tarzan movies that they would play on, like, TNT and stuff, and so I was, like, very excited about this, movie just in general, and when it came out on DVD, I got it, and it was in this rotation of movies that I had where I had saved up money over the summer as a lifeguard to buy a laptop that had a DVD player built in. My
Ah.
family didn't have a DVD player in the house. Because it was this transition in the technology at this point. So I had like 3 to 5 DVDs at a certain point that were just like in constant rotation that I would just watch all the goddamn time. And Tarzan was in that group alongside Blade, alongside the original Highlander.
Nice.
Like, so it was just one of these movies that I just you can't quite wear out a DVD, but like I would have if I could have. And I watched all the special features on it, and I just really enjoyed it. So much so that like when early DVD ripping technology was available, I ripped it so that I could have it on my computer. Um,
Mm,
and I was also the kind of nerd who really enjoyed doing AMVs, anime music videos,
nice.
and so I did my first like round of those uh actually using like Dragon Ball Z footage and so forth, and
Hmm.
then lost them all when my hard drive crashed. And
Oh,
then
No.
when I started like doing new ones, I wanted to do like I was more experimental in terms of like footage. So rather than just doing like DBZ or like the Chrono Trigger animated sequences from the PlayStation adaptation of the game. Uh, like I was looking to like Disney movies or Conan the Barbarian or
Hmm.
Troy. And so was in this scenario and Tarzan is such a lush, beautiful movie.
mm,
And I had fallen in love with the song "The World You Love"
Hmm.
by Jimmy Eat World. And I just thought that there was something really intrinsically connected between the sort of like there's a line in the actual movie, The New Horizon. It's in the Phil Collins song, Strangers Like Me. And there is that's sort of like the thesis of like what is so appealing about humanity to Tarzan. And that desire to sort of explore the unknown is also in that song, and also about like like the difficulty leaving the people that you have around you, and I just thought it matched up perfectly for it. Like the guitar licks like felt like perfect for the like sort of surfer style scenes that we get in there. We have, uh, you know, not to toot my own horn, but I still get chills every time I watch it, and I've got the sequence of him raising the dead Sabor,
Yes, yes.
like
Mhm.
like
Very triumphant.
it's just like, is it something that I would like love to re-edit at some point? Yes, absolutely. Like there's repeated footage, there's like little tweaks that I made because I was
Mhm.
using like Windows Movie Maker, like it was, you know, um, but weirdly, uh, all of those AMV videos, because I put them up like very early in the existence of YouTube that would allow
Mhm.
for it to
Mhm.
be supported. Because at first YouTube was like way shorter clips,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then eventually it was like long enough, but there were like copyright issue, like uh, those videos have quite a few views at this point,
Yeah.
which is kind of incredible. Um, but yeah, like this one is just one I've always been really proud of, and the act of editing a movie to a song actually is this
Mhm.
very like intimate experience. Like any movie that like you really like feel like passionate enough about to like break apart and to like look for these like key scenes and so forth. Like it really like, I've never actually articulated this before. Like, you really get into the meat of it. Like, you
Yeah.
really try to, like, analyze and understand, like, the heart and how the scenes tick and, like, where the cool moments are and everything. Um, and so that exercise has made it be a property that has really resonated with me now, like, 20-ish years later.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's incredible. I never had the fan edit experience that you speak of. But my first college roommate, I've talked about him on this podcast before, Evan. We had different vibes we were going for in our college careers. I think we both decided that we were in search of different roommates, but we wound up having like this solid first semester together. There was a lot of pop culture we bonded over. And while these weren't fan edits, one of our main pastimes was we loved to put on like movie clips that we loved, but set them to new music to try to like change the meaning behind the scene. So I have
Mhm.
fond memories of playing with footage. We were teenagers in the early 2000s, so it was a lot of like Braveheart and The Rock, but you know, it is what it is. All right, Chris, I'm excited to hear your answer because we're in Tarzan 1999. Just recently, I got to hear about you and your brothers and your love for the film Wild America, a coming
Mhm.
of age story. So what's your history with Tarzan? Was this another big one with the Ingersoll clan, or was there something else going on here?
Dude, this was a big one with the Ingersoll clan. So here's the thing, 1999, I'm 11 years old, right? I'm a bit
Hmm.
younger than you guys. So at 11 years old, I was probably like on the other side of Disney film enthusiasm, right? Like the next Disney
Sure.
film to come out may not necessarily have been something I was like primed to be excited for by that age, but this one looked so cool and so fun. It had the tree surfing in the trailer. It looked breathtaking. The music was already like capturing your imagination as we headed towards this film coming out. But my little brother was also 7.5 years younger than I am. So he was the perfect age as a little boy to be stoked for this film. When he saw little Tarzan on the screen, like, I don't think he'd ever connected with the character more fully, more completely. He was at an age where he was ready to see himself in somebody on screen. So I remember Cody had this habit of he would take a t-shirt and he'd put it on
Yes.
on his head, like, just the neck of the shirt around his head like a headband, so the shirt would drape back, and he'd pretend he had long hair, like little Tarzan had that cool long hair he was always shaking out. Um, we watched this movie a ton. We had the DVD, it was in constant rotation, much like Case said, but it was like the whole experience because the soundtrack
Hmm.
obviously is also phenomenal. And I think I told you, Randy, about like the black CD cases that went in the car all the time for every single road
Hmm.
trip, and there was the handful of CDs in constant rotation. This soundtrack was in constant rotation for us in the car. And then there was a licensed video game that came out for the PlayStation 1, which, like, at the time, I remember so much of the film was actually captured for the video game. You'd get, like, a cutscene. It was, like, a huge long sequence from the film. You'd then play a level that felt like it was kinda in that part of the jungle world, and then you get another long scene from the movie. You play that video game through, you can watch a pretty good amount of that whole film just playing the video game. So the number of times that I've seen this film It's high. I don't know if it's the highest, but it's very, very high. I still have a PS1. I still have this game for that PS1. I've played this game in the last 6 months. Excellent tree surfing in that video game despite the lacking, mechanics, at the time, the lacking graphics. I love this movie. I love everything about this movie, start to finish.
I only wish I could time travel to join an Ingersoll family road trip, like, maybe just a few years later, so we could do, like, Coyote Ugly, followed by the Tarzan soundtrack, and just keep it rolling on the road trip.
You know it. If I could jump in the TARDIS with you and go back to a
Mhm.
specific moment, there was one time my brother and I, my older brother and I got up early, and my parents were gonna be out for the day, we were in charge, we had our younger brother, um, and we set up the whole house as a jungle. While he was still asleep, we
Wow.
quietly gathered every one of his Beanie Babies, all of his
Nice.
stuffed animals. We gathered blue blankets for water and green blankets for jungle, and we just, like, decked out the downstairs of the house with animals placed in little places, so when Cody woke up, he came down, and he was, like, in this immersive world. He knew what was up. He took his shirt off, put it on his head, dropped down to his little knuckles, and started running around hooting. That's the day I would bring you back to if you want to live a little bit of Tarzan with us.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, Chris, you're so in the zone. I'm going to throw it right back to you for the next question. You've got these deep family connections, but is there anything about this movie, either like thematically or in the characters, that's stuck with you? Maybe it's impacted your personal life, your values, maybe your professional life. Heck, who knows?
Hasn't necessarily impacted my professional life, but I am a little, I guess, embarrassed to acknowledge that the physicality of Tarzan had a huge impact on me as like a developing young man and the type of strength and fitness that I wanted to work towards.
Hmm.
I'm like a naturally fairly large person. I'm not naturally the most like um I I couldn't do pull-ups as a child. I could do a chin bar hang during the presidential fitness test, right? The musculature, the way Tarzan's built, he's built like a climber. He's built in a way that makes you believe he can do all these things that he's doing, that he's as
Hmm.
athletic as he appears. The segmentation of that musculature, right? I very much took that character and said, that's the kind of in shape I would like to be. I don't need to be
Hmm.
big and bulky. I would like to be lean and athletic and be able to move my body through space, like
Hmm.
really control my body through space like he does when he's tree surfing and swinging on vines. Fast forward through years of fitness training, and eventual, like, exposure to parkour,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I very much was, like, climbing the city of New York and sliding and riding where I could.
Hmm.
I think the earliest seeds planted for the type of fitness I would pursue in my life started here with this film.
I absolutely love that. So, Case, you had the fan edits. This film is on constant rotation. How has it stuck with you? Like, you love the film, but has it impacted your personal life, your professional life, your values? How else has this movie stuck with you?
So wildly, I have a very similar story to Chris.
Yes.
It's just one that only had a shelf life because eventually snacks and everything caught up with me. Um, but back in my 20s, no, I actually very much was committed. So because there was the announced Broadway show, and I was an aspiring
Mm.
actor. And
Okay.
I had an idea in my head, like I was very much into capoeira, so I could do some
Mhm.
of the sort of acrobatics moves, and I had gone from being a pretty pudgy kid in high school and college
Mhm.
to I had dropped down to the lightest weight I had ever had in my life. And I was, like, actively trying to do, like, physical motions like that, with the dream of, like, making it onto the Broadway show, which closed, like,
Mm.
6 months into it, so, like, it didn't
Yeah.
actually matter.
Right. It was no
Um
Lion King on Broadway, that's for
no.
sure.
No. So there was that. I also need to note that I walk on my knuckles all the goddamn time.
Yes.
Like, I like, especially going upstairs, like, all the time, and it's not like I walk, like, full fist. I walk, like,
Sure,
with
sure.
the way Tarzan does with, like, like, extended out, like, initial digit kind of walk. Um, so that, My daughter emulates me, so it's like a trait I'm passing on.
Beautiful.
Nice.
It is just one of those things. So physically, yes, like there is that scenario. Professionally, there is a certain degree, like just the fan edit. Actually, I have used as a portfolio piece, especially in
Nice.
early editing work. So and has come up at least in conversation, in that front. And if nothing else, it gave me experience in terms of editing, so that I use to this day,
Yeah.
which is like a thing I do both professionally and for the podcasts.
Perfect.
I love the capoeira connection. I hadn't really thought about, like, Tarzan's low to the ground, kinda
Hmm.
rotating,
Yeah, yeah.
how
Mhm.
appropriate that is to capoeira. That's so cool, man.
Yeah, awesome. I love it when these questions take twists and turns that I never would have anticipated. This has been fascinating. Now I've got to hit you both with the toughest media lit question, but before I do that, I'm gonna put myself in the crosshairs. Now, I don't have a history with this film. However, it's been the year of Superman. Kris, you have a podcast called Batman by the Numbers, where you've been
Mhm.
talking a lot about Superman. I've had the joy and the pleasure of being on that show a couple of times. Case Aiken, you run a podcast called Men of Steel. I believe you recently had Kris on as a guest,
That is true.
which I cannot wait to
This is
hear.
true.
Um, I've been reading up on my Superman, and it's given me an excuse to talk about one of my favorite cultural things, which is Superman song by the Crash Test Dummies. I've talked a lot about how much I love that song, the way it characterizes Superman, but I've gotta, come clean and admit a flaw in that song is that in that song, they use Tarzan as this sort of foil to Superman. They imply he's someone who's not making the sacrifices that Superman makes. Uh, it's a pretty bad look, but they kind of mock Tarzan for his lack
Mm.
of fluency despite being raised by gorillas. He could hardly string 4 words together. It's not the best part of the song. It's never been part of why I celebrate it. And watching this film, I've got to be honest, like the pangs of guilt for how much I've celebrated that song and the raw deal they give Tarzan in that song. It's been eating away at me. So I thought this was the appropriate spot to, make that known. That will still move me to tears. I still love it, but I've got to acknowledge it does have that flaw. Um, whew.
Wow. That's mature,
Yeah.
Randy. That shows a lot of emotional intelligence. I'm
Yeah,
impressed.
this is growth.
Yeah, this is growth.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Whew, well, it felt good to get that off my chest. Case, I'm gonna hit you with this tough question first. You love this movie, but does it have any flaws?
I I have been trying to think about that because I do think it's nearly perfect.
Mhm,
Mhm.
I mean, at minimum, we have to deal with it as an adaptation of this, like, pro-colonial kind of work. Um, and it sanitizes a lot of it, but it does so at the expense of not necessarily being as inclusive as it could be. Like, it is an Africa with no black people in it, um, which is, a choice, but the thing is, like, like, while there are black people in the original Tarzan of the Apes, like, do you want that to be the representation that is in a kid's movie? And, like, it it is, certainly very complicated, to say the least, on
mhm,
that one. Um, Otherwise, it's hard to say, to really point to a real flaw. Like, the cast is very strong. The
Mhm.
animation is this incredible compositing
mhm,
of hand-drawn and digital animation. The use of the momentum sliding mechanism that they have, the surfer style, method of Tarzan's travel that they invented for this movie is a
mm,
really elegant way of updating the, like, conventional Tarzan just swinging around on vines
Mm.
kind of design.
mm,
The use of music, especially being non-diegetic in this movie for the most part, I think makes sense because it would be really awkward. Like, that's sort of the argument that why they didn't do, like, like, characters breaking out into song that much. We
mhm,
only have 2 actual instances of it. One is Kala singing a lullaby to Tarzan that turns into a
mhm,
non-diegetic song. And then the other is Trashing the Camp, which is a necessary scene, and the musical aspect of it. It occurred to me on the latest rewatch that this is at the height of Stomp's popularity when this
Mhm.
movie
yep,
came out.
yep,
And so to have this, like, scat number that is, like, using percussion, uh, like as the primary driver of instrumentation, was very much of like, oh, there's like this like bit of modernity in it that makes
Mm,
it sort of acceptable and cool, and not like breaking the world to have a musical number in there. And then the fact that the soundtrack is all bangers is all like certainly a helpful
Sure.
part there.
yes.
Um, it is a bit scary. My daughter and I watched this together, and she's 2.5, and I realized that even like Kerchak freaked her the hell out.
Mm,
And
Sure.
I was like, "No, he's just angry. It's okay." And she was like, she needed to like have me hold her for the rest of it. And then like
yeah.
the fight with Clayton at the end is very scary. And so like it is like as far as Disney movies go, like it is slightly more more for like a slightly older audience in that group. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think like I said, the legacy that it is contending with is probably the slipperiest area for it, and they did an okay job sanitizing it, but is it overly sanitized? Maybe.
You nailed it, man. Chris, how about for you? You love this film, but doesn't have any flaws.
Yeah, I think that's all really interesting case. It probably makes sense that, like, it's cleaner for the whole he's never seen a human before to just be like, is in a very remote part of Africa where there's no tribes nearby to speak to the
Right.
lack of any other representation, but yeah, you're very wise to say that they kinda danced around. It's a sticky legacy, and that
Mhm.
is itself sort of almost inherently a flaw. It's like, why did you have to tell this story? But I do think they do a nice job of reclaiming those stickier elements. The major flaw for me is much more of a nitpick because, like Case, I think this film
Yeah.
executes, pretty successfully, across all facets of production, sound design, animation, the
Mhm.
performances, all of it. However,
Hmm.
they build a very impressive treehouse. I know they have the benefit of, like, wreckage, like, things that have washed ashore from the very ship that they had been on. Um, it's too good. I would say, like, in hindsight, as a kid, I loved it, but now as, like, a grown person who's just trying to keep his own actual house, like, together and make things work in the world, it's just the father and mother. They're alone. Like, the Swiss Family, they had a whole family. They could put those kids to work.
Thank you for saying Swiss Family Robinson because that is exactly what.
Yeah, of course, right?
Yeah.
This treehouse is a place that we would all live. It's, like, on this lovely little kinda, like, extended outgrowth that needs a bridge to get to it, yet there's this beautiful tree standing alone, so not only is the setting sort of, like,
Mhm.
otherworldly perfect, but then they really do build this overly impressive, very comfortable, home for themselves. There are drapes. They're
Yeah.
still and, like, their clothes are okay. Um, oh, that's it's a small nitpick because it works for the film. It doesn't take you
Yeah.
out of the film. As a grown-up looking for a flaw, I can point to that.
No, I love that. As a matter of fact, if I wanna marry that to what Case was saying, I'm gonna give you a reason to maybe appreciate it, Chris, right? If I wanna give this movie a lot of credit, and I do, that nod to Swiss Family Robinson, that's a certain tradition of storytelling. It's that, pro-colonial tradition. I am an English teacher, as we know. One text I don't talk about as often is Lord of the Flies, which is a riff on a pre-existing novel called The Coral Island. And in that version of the story, the young British boys build a great civilization because go Europe or whatever.
Yes.
So to like have them build that like clear nod to Swiss Family Robinson, but then to have them still fall to a natural predator
Oh, I like
reads
that.
to me like a little bit of like commentary on that. Like,
I like
no, this
that.
is not fully a Swiss Family Robinson story. And it's not out of cruelty to Tarzan's parents. It's not vilifying them. It's just giving us a taste of a harsher sort of reality and those rules and laws of the jungle.
Yeah, you can't actually just roll in, build yourself a house, and survive in this jungle that isn't meant for man. I love that. In case you're right, it's super scary. I should have mentioned
Yeah.
that at breakfast this morning with my extended family. I learned that my niece still doesn't like movies, and
Uh-huh.
it stems back to my older brother trying to show her this far too young.
Ooh.
Mhm.
My sister-in-law said, "Yeah, Grace, like, just before 2 years old, sees this movie, cries at the beginning. Now, she doesn't like movies. She's 10 years
Yeah.
old."
Wait. The girl's name is Grace. My daughter's name is
Yes.
Grace.
Oh, get out of here. Yeah, that's
Beautiful.
my niece's name. Yeah, that's great.
Listen, I
Wicked funny.
watched this for the first time. It became a little impromptu date night for my wife and I. We both like audibly gasped when they actually showed like the bodies
I
of
know.
the parents.
Mhm.
Bloody claw
I mean,
marks.
it was done in a classy way. But yeah, the blood, the actual bodies. We got over it, but like we were genuinely surprised. You don't expect that from the Disney
Mhm.
fair. And I suppose that complexity is a great moment for us to kick this out of the personal connections section and bring it into our more intense literary analysis. What do you think, Chris?
I think you did like a real professional, sir. Let's talk about this film as literature. Um, I think it is hard to talk about this film without acknowledging the incredible animation style. Case you got into a little bit earlier, but I want to dig in further. Let's talk about what makes this animation so unique and maybe how well it does or does not hold up. Case, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I mean, so this comes in at 1999,
Hmm.
and this is an era where digital technology is rapidly being introduced into movie making, but it hasn't become the default at this point. And so this is a movie that blends hand-drawn animation with a lot of 3D rendering that they've composited in a way that it doesn't seem um, like an abstract element that doesn't fit. Like they blend it together
Hmm.
extremely well, and this allows for really aggressive camera movements that would be very difficult to do even in a live shoot, let alone in a hand drawn animated type of sequence, which obviously was going to have way more effort just to like get every single frame together on that one. So they can do all kinds of really interesting kinds of sequences with that, and then it has really excellent use of gradients in its coloring.
Hmm.
Like, despite the fact that it is hand drawn, it's not flat.
Mm,
Yeah.
And it's really really well done. We popped on Tarzan 2 after watching Tarzan 1 because my daughter, despite finding it scary, did really like it and wanted more of the gorilla
Yep.
one. Um, and and so we put on Tarzan 2, which is like the direct to video one story
yeah,
about Tarzan as a child running off from home, uh,
Mm.
because he thinks the family will be better without him. Uh, and you can see just the dip in quality in terms of just like how much effort was put into like just the lushness of the colors.
Yeah.
I mean, the world that Tarzan lives in is so inviting and so beautiful, even though there is scary elements to it. That it's j it's just a feast,
yeah,
like, for
yeah.
your eyes, like,
Yeah.
I just wanted to go to there.
It's so well said. Yeah, it's crazy beautiful, and you're right, the sequel, not as good. Tarzan and Jane, another film they made off of this franchise, also not great, don't bother with it.
Yeah.
Uh, Randy, what about you? Any thoughts on the animation here and maybe how well it holds up today?
Yeah, I didn't dip into the sequels, but I just want to yes and Case by saying it's right there in the thumbnail image, right? Like, I think Tarzan and Jane was the one they were feeding me at the end of my viewing, and yeah, you could see it right there in the thumbnail. I already knew, like, I'm not so sure that this is ever going to get any time from me. I think I just watched a phenomenal film. I think I've had enough. But let me focus on that because for me, I think seeing it for the first time now in 2025, it helped me appreciate the animation, I think, even more. I'm sure in 1999, some people were really impressed with the technical elements of it. I'm sure probably some people felt a bit conflicted. Um, but we live in a world now where people are using technology to try to create a more genuine feeling, a messiness. The Into the Spider-Verse franchise blends a lot of different animation styles, and they at least create like a feeling of hand drawn at times. Or like I really loved the recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem that did a similar sort of like layering effect to like
Mm,
get this feeling of something hand drawn. I don't watch a ton of anime, but I think it was last fall, Chris, we checked out the Terminator anime,
that's right.
so we could talk about it on Anime Pop, and we both really enjoyed it. I really liked the series quite a bit. My only nitpick was I found it so unnatural and out of place when they switched over to like 3D rendered sections of
Yes,
storytelling.
horrifying.
and I've seen it happen in other places. Um, and my main thought watching this film is like they did that blending of styles better than most films do it today.
Yeah.
So I was really blown away by it. I think I enjoyed it more now than maybe I even would have in 1999. And the other thing I want to say is like they managed to find room to represent all of these eras. Like there was this groundbreaking technology, these new techniques and styles, these more 3D sort of elements. Yet you would also have shots of flowers blooming that looked like they came straight out of Fantasia. So
Mhm.
to have all of
Mhm.
those eras blending together, really beautiful. And also just the lighting. There were several shots of like just the rays of light breaking through the
Yeah.
canopy, each one more beautiful than the last. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Yes, and to both of you. I'm so glad you went to lighting there at the end there, Randy, because one thing I wanted to highlight was the nighttime sequences and how the
Mm,
jungle transforms, how beautiful the lighting is. In that it feels like a separate world almost when it goes to nighttime in the jungle, which I think it should. I'm sure it does in real life. The word I would use for this is just it's movement, right? There's kind of constant movement. Case, you talked about the way that the camera is able to swoop through this 3D environment, but they establish that dynamic sense of motion, of fluidity right in the beginning. You get this incredible title card sequence, right? Like
mhm,
I think more robust than your average Disney opening, these really bold Tarzan letters, and it immerses you into what this film is gonna feel like throughout very quickly. You get the building drums. It's like it's kinda in your chest and getting you hyped for the film as the name Tarzan swoops in and the camera moves through those large blocky, letters. It's just beautiful. And I think some of what contributes to the seamlessness of the blending between the 2D and the 3D is probably that choice to lay down, like,
mm,
hand-painted textures on those
yeah,
3D models, right? So even the 3D space still has a lot of natural texture to it. It looks like an artist laid down a brush and created that whole canvas. So, yeah, I mean, Randy, I think you're right to say that because of the ways in which we have come so much further in our technology, and now we're kind of going backwards, trying to use technology to recreate the look and feel of something hand drawn. This thing stands as like almost a perfect moment. I hate realizing that the Matrix was right and that 1999 was the pinnacle of our civilization. But in a lot of ways, I keep coming back to it. And this, I think, is a good
yeah,
example of it. This was like, you never want progression to stop, right? I often joke that dolphins maybe could have evolved further, but they mastered existence and they stopped right before things got too complicated. Maybe this animation is exactly that. It's like they should have stopped here. This was beautiful and it created an immersive environment, but still felt, I don't know, traditional, Randy. I think that the
yeah.
eras that you mentioned is that's worthwhile. We shouldn't lose that. So I'm glad this film still exists.
No, absolutely perfect. So my next question here, I think we've covered it pretty well, but I'm going to throw it out there because I think there might still be a couple of stones to unturned here. But this film, on paper, like it has the checklist of a Disney animated feature. Yeah, you've got silly sidekicks, you've got dead parents, you've got all the things you've come to know and love and expect from a Disney animated film. Yet we've already started to establish there's something a bit more adult and mature happening here. We've talked a bit about some of the choices this film makes to, broach the source material without crossing the wrong lines. We've talked a bit about some of the violence in this film, but I was wondering if there is anything else this movie does to distinguish itself as something that is a little bit more mature and intentional than maybe some other animated features that it's trying to appeal to more than just children. Case, what do you think?
Well, w- we have to draw attention to a theme that Kevin Lima loves doing, at least in two of his strongest animated works, which is this and a Goofy movie, which is he
Mhm.
loves telling stories about fathers and sons. And this is a movie that does such an amazing job of having this story of a son looking for approval from a stern father figure who won't
Mhm.
even refer to him as his son, but that is clearly the thing that he wanted most in life
Mm.
for uh for the entirety of this movie, and like
Mhm.
is the ultimate like thing that he like reward he gets at the end of the movie. um that so we have this through line of family and particularly that father and son dynamic and that friction element there, where he ultimately like takes on the role of being the silverback in the family at the end of it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that that's like certainly one of these like areas of maturity that like not to bash a more recent Disney movie, but like for example, Frozen 2 doesn't have that kind
Sure.
of narrative weight.
Mm,
Mhm.
mm. Yeah, I love that you highlighted the father story there, and especially where Tarzan has to come back and choose to be that silverback for his family and take on that
Mhm.
role. Um, but that's only after he's tried to put on the literal clothing of his father, right?
Yeah.
He's decided that he wasn't accepted there. He's now lost his place through betrayal. He's not worthy of that father, and he goes back and he thinks he's going to try on this other version of
Yeah.
himself that maybe he was more meant to be. But that's not true.
God, I love that, Chris. And, this was not in my notes, but listening to you talk, I love that the true moment of acceptance does not get to happen, when Tarzan is presenting the corpse of an animal he's killed, in defense of the family, not out of cruelty, not for sport. But it happens at this moment of vulnerability, right? Like that's
Mm,
where we're passing on the role of the alpha. In the moment where I can be vulnerable, I can admit my flaws and my mistakes and show some trust in you, some love in you. It's not just like that nod of respect to a strong warrior. So yeah, so many layers,
yeah.
layers upon layers. Chris, do you have anything else to add to this discussion of like just sort of the mature tone of this film?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is worth kinda noting more clearly the elevated nature of life and death in this film.
Hmm.
Like, um, maybe The Lion King was interested in exploring the circle of life and establishing that
Hmm.
concept, but this is different. To your point, Randy, showing us, the mother and father dead on the ground, and not just the bodies dead, but what got them there. There's the bloody paw prints. We know that this
Hmm.
leopard came and attacked them, and this was the result. And to see Tarzan have to kill this creature, like, he has to pick up its corpse, and we have to see and reckon with that, right? That this is a dangerous place, that death is a very real part of life, and not just in, like, a lovey-dovey circle of life type of thing. Like, no, things need to eat, and for things to eat, things need to die, and that isn't always balanced and beautiful and happy. Sometimes that feels tragic, and this film is not
Yeah.
shy about that. And then it culminates in the death of a villain that is right up there, I think, with Scar. Like, the Scar's
Hmm.
takedown at the end of The Lion King is it's pretty intense, and I'm not sure what that feels like to watch it. I can't get in touch with young me enough to know what that felt like, maybe how impactful that would be. I do remember what it was like watching Clayton unable to stop himself from bringing his own doom, and then
Hmm.
knowing that he had fallen and his neck snapped, and there he was hanging dead, right? You just see his shadow. That
Yeah.
to me was that felt like an escalation, an elevation of the maturity and the storytelling beyond just the takedown of Scar by the hyenas.
Yeah, the violence of the piece is certainly it's unique among Disney movies, and I think it owes to the fact that we are looking at a very violent pulp fiction work that it's
Hmm.
an adaptation of. And so it has to pay tribute to that because if it lacked some of those elements, then it would not feel like a proper adaptation of a Tarzan film.
Mm,
Like like the fight with Sabor is a masterclass in
Hmm.
how you do like like a beast versus man kind of fight. It's so good that if you look at Avatar, it is almost shot for shot replaced or replicated in the fight between whatever the main dude,
Sam Worthington.
Sam Worthington. But yeah, like
Yeah, I
Yes.
uh he fights a weird panther creature from from that planet. And they have the same sequence where it like goes into the root system and he's like trying to like sneak his way through and so
Hmm.
forth. It is almost shot for shot the same fight.
I think I've seen a comparison of this before. It's not the first time I've been confronted with this concept, but I had forgotten about it. Now I'm gonna go in a YouTube rabbit hole and try to find, some
Yeah.
copying and pasting.
Like, when I
Jake,
saw Avatar, I thought I was going insane.
that's a great
Uh,
sequence.
He
yeah.
just he just went through that whole Disney canon. He was like, Pocahontas, check. Tarzan, check.
Right.
But we get big dramatic fight sequences in this movie throughout. Like the fight with
Mhm.
Kerchak is also a really big fight sequence. Like
Mm,
it's relatively quick, but like it's the kind of scene you expect in a Tarzan movie. Tarzan getting into a wrestling match with a gorilla and winning by way of a chokehold. Like that that's exactly what you would expect to see in a Tarzan movie.
Mhm.
And the fact that they set it up, there's like this movie is rich with setup and payoff in the first act when he's play wrestling with Turk
mhm,
and Turk keeps on saying not the neck, not the neck.
Mm.
It like sort of establishing like that this is a weak point that Tarzan has identified with gorillas.
Mhm.
You know, and then the ultimate confrontation with Clayton, which is a pretty dynamic fight sequence. Uh, that violence that while it is escalated over what you would normally see in a Disney movie, is part of the canon that they are trying to reckon with
mm,
and adapt. And I think they do so in a way that is not over the top and it's not glorifying the sources of those violence, like the guns, for example. Like at the end, Tarzan is disgusted by the gun and destroys it.
right.
Mhm.
But it's still a it's still a thing and it's still a fascinating part of his journey in this movie. Like the gunshot literally is the break into two. Like like him being able to emulate that sound
Pretty
is
cool.
him like resolving the drama that was introduced by by humanity being brought in.
Mm.
Like the gunshot is the symbol of
Mhm.
humanity. He's able to emulate it and then destroy it on his own terms. And then Clayton kills himself by his own hand, and like that's
Yeah.
a thing. But
Well, I think that's what's so important, right? Because I think the film wants to say that that's not humanity. Those are things that we think superficially the emblems of humanity, right? The technology, the gun, the clothing. Um, and I think it is commentary that it's self-destructive, right? He leads to his
Yeah.
own demise.
yeah,
But I think it's also so important in that moment that Tarzan, his family, Jane and her father too, they're displaying what like humanity, what love for another living thing looks like, the intentional choice to love rather than to kill. Tarzan doesn't want Clayton to keep going. He tries to Clayton, no, he sees what's coming
Yeah.
and wants to prevent that even after all that's gone on. Not only does he break the gun, but he actively wants to prevent Clayton's demise,
Yeah.
showing that like despite his upbringing, he is far more human
Yeah.
than Clayton.
right.
Yeah.
He says, "Not a man like you,"
Mhm.
which means that
Exactly.
he is accepting his role as a man.
Yeah. But that's what you are is not what defines a man.
Yeah. Man, you guys nailed this so much. I loved all that discussion of, like, the suspense and the action, like, they really were all bangers. Like, even that initial rescue of the infant Tarzan, incredible
Yeah,
suspense there, walking through that rope walk, and Sabor cannot be stopped.
Oh,
I was genuinely on the edge of my seat that entire time. So yeah, the whole movie. I did want to hit this question from a slightly different angle, and I just wanted to say something mature about this film for me was just the way it sidestepped a lot of tropes that I might have expected it to step into.
mm,
So like for instance, the introduction of Jane. It would have been so easy for them to like get carried away with like I'm a Victorian lady, and what is with this dress? I wish I weren't wearing it. And they do all of that silently through the animation, and they let her just live and breathe as a character. They know we've seen it a million times before. Um, I think it would have been so easy for someone to just be like, well, naturally, in addition to being this awful hunter, Clayton must also have to lust after Jane as part of the story. And I was like so relieved that that wasn't like part of it. That wasn't something I had to deal with. Um, like, would I dislike the movie if that were going on? No, but it was so nice that, like, that wasn't where my brain had to be. Was a
and
huge
what's
one.
wild is that the Clayton character in the book is ultimately does get married to Jane first.
Sure.
Uh, Now, part of that gets Clayton's not as much of a villain in that, and is also Tarzan's cousin because Tarzan's real name is John Clayton III. So, like,
Yeah. And, absolutely. But, like, and then the final one I wanna shout out, Disney Animation and Media Lit, we love a short king, shout out to the Sultan, shout out to Belle's dad. And, we get another one. We get, Archimedes Q Porter here. absolutely love this guy for a zillion reasons, which perhaps we'll get into later. But in terms of breaking the tropes, I do just want to say this guy's so ahead of his time. He is so sex positive. When his daughter talks about like having this like close interaction with Tarzan, he's just like so chill about it and just has like a loving smile later on. Uh, and that's it. He doesn't get one of those like dad being protective of his daughter moments, and he's just so cool. Love him start to finish.
Agreed, yeah, he's kinda like Belle's dad in that way that he also supports her mind, like, he very
Yes.
much is bringing her along, and she's a part of this world of science and discovery that he's a part of.
He's
Now that we're
also extremely quotable. I reference him on a weekly basis, at least,
Nice.
saying, "Look, look, social grooming."
Yeah, very good. Well, now we're talking characters, let's kinda get into it. Let's talk about Tony Goldwyn as Tarzan. Does he nail the assignment here? Case, we'll go to you first.
I say mostly with a big ol' asterisk after that one, and so I say mostly because I think that the part is like, he does a really good job with a part that is, um, I don't wanna say underwritten from the perspective of being, like, poorly underwritten, but, like, he is a very, like, he's not particularly verbal even amongst his ape community.
Mm,
And part of that is because they want to have this sort of like consistent sort of language for him
Mhm.
so that he isn't like jarringly different between the two groups. A- but he's very soft spoken as a character. Um, and I think does a really good job with that. Now, where that becomes the big ol' asterisk at the end there is that, couldn't do the Tarzan yell, so Brian Blessed, who plays Clayton, does the Tarzan yell, and that is, just a fun bit of trivia right there that
yeah.
and side note, for those of you who have young children, who watch Peppa Pig, uh, uh, Grampy Rabbit is voiced by Brian Blessed and does the Tarzan yell when he swings on ropes, at school.
Oh, wow. That's
Oh,
awesome.
I did
That's
not
great.
make that connection.
So if you've ever been like, "Why does Grampy Rabbit sound like Clayton?" That is why. It is all Brian Blessed right there.
Because it is in fact Clayton. Brilliant. Oh, I love that. Yeah, an asterisk well earned. Randy, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll steal from Brian Blessed. I learned this, moments before the podcast. I was sending Chris and in case Instagram reels. But I think they probably already knew this piece of trivia before I got involved. But yeah, I had a lot of fun hearing it. And Brian Blessed said, uh, he's was a larger than life persona, and the way he talks about how he wound up doing the yell, um, it almost sounds like he's poking fun at Tony Goldwyn. I think it's loving fun. I think it's respectful fun. And he kind of points out that there's this innocence to the voice that Tony Goldwyn does, and he
Mm,
says it's great for Tarzan, and I think that that is so true. But I'm gonna give Tony a couple bonus points because he really nails the humor when he's first like going through his like mimicry stage, trying to learn all the different things. With my favorite being when he imitates like the high pitch of Jane, like "Can't we walk?"
Yes.
And
dude, if I quote anything from this film very often, it's that. The screaming "Can't we walk" is a favorite. I'm so glad you called that out.
uh,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He is, Case, you said soft spoken, and I agree. He's never projecting. He's always sort
mhm,
of like he's very calm, he's very reserved. He's not quick to use his voice, which makes sense because he hasn't really developed his voice proper, right?
mhm.
Grunts, um, that gorilla language that apparently has a perfect translation one for one to English words.
Yeah.
Uh, it's different the way you use your vocal cords, so it makes sense that he wouldn't have the same sort of bombastic projection that a guy like Clayton is walking around with. So I think the performance is nuanced in that way, but there's also a depth to his voice that helps sell it, right? That um, you believe that he could do that big yell when he lets that big yell out, even if that's not actually real in real life, which I was today years old, Randy, when I learned that much like you. I always took for granted that that was Tony Goldwyn giving the yodel. So um, I was going to say that that depth of voice
Mm.
allows you to believe that he's capable of that big echoing yodel, no matter how soft spoken he's been previously.
Oh, absolutely perfect. So, you know, we've talked a bit about Clayton. We've talked a bit about Tony Goldwyn. I did shout out Jane, but obviously she's pretty essential to this film working, right? I said this was a great date night movie, and I
Yeah.
think Minnie Driver deserves some of that credit. So, Chris, I'm throwing this one right back to you. Minnie Driver as Jane, did she nail the assignment?
Yeah, she's perfect. I don't have any notes for this performance. I know that it's a very familiar voice, and maybe for some people that's a thing that can pull them out a little bit. Like Tony Goldwyn, I couldn't tell you. I know he's from Hacks. I know him from other things like
Hmm.
Short Ghost, but I couldn't have necessarily paired the name with the face. I didn't hear the voice and think, "Oh, that's that guy from that thing."
Yeah.
Minnie Driver's very much that person, right? At this point, she's well established. Good Will Hunting was phenomenal, um, and so her voice is extremely recognizable, but it works perfectly because it's so appropriate for Jane's level of like intelligence and propriety, but also her neuroses.
Hmm.
Minnie Driver has this pace of delivery that's just so perfect. When she's with Tarzan in the tree and he's like approaching her and she's resistant. When she finally elevates the get off, it's like soft, "Get off, get off, get off, get off," and she gives him a little kick.
Hmm.
It's just really good nuanced voice work from Minnie Driver. So not only is her natural cadence perfect for this character and the way it's written, she uses her instrument very, very well.
Beautiful. Case, how about for you? Does Minnie Driver nail the assignment?
Yeah, I pretty much have only the same things to say as Chris here, and like even would go to the same scene, just a slightly different spot, which is like when Tarzan first apes her and says,
Hmm.
"It's very nice," and she goes, "Oh, thank you, I can't do anything with it." You spoke, like her delivery there is also just extremely good use of her instrument, like just solid work.
Yeah, I'm a big Minnie Driver fan. If I had known she was in this movie, I probably would have watched it years ago. Um, yeah, I mean, one another thing they were very aware of in this movie was Beauty and the Beast. You know, not only the little shout out to Mrs. Potts and Chip when we're
Mhm.
seeing all of the niceties that have been brought over from England on this trip. But we've got a smart girl character, and unfortunately, in 1999, the roster was pretty short there for Disney, right? So you've got Belle, you've got this yellow dress, you're thinking the ball gown, and we've got this other character who, she has her head in the book. In this case, it's biology books and her sketchbook, versus fictional tales. Um, and she's able to distinguish herself, right? Like they don't force her to fall into the trope. She's not like, a film from a similar time that I love is The Mummy starring Brandon Fraser. Love every performance in that movie, but she's not like an uptight librarian trope. She is, I think Chris, you said neuroses. Like there is this energy to her. She's such a full-bodied character. And then there are these little things with Minnie Driver's voice that really jump out to me, especially when she's like finally like getting one page of her notebook back from that little monkey. Like there's this little like cackling sort of like nature, like undertone in her voice. These little like high pitched, shrieky little bits that fit in. Um, and just like the tour de force that is her story of being rescued by the ape man, when her father and Clayton think she's lost her damn mind, is just chef's kiss beautiful. So yeah, love Jane, love Minnie Driver. I think she did nail the assignment.
Beautifully said. I love the comparison, of course, to Belle. Are you gentlemen aware of the popular fan theory that Jane is in fact descended directly from Belle because they're so similar in their look? They've got the yellow dress. The tea set is
Oh.
present as if it's perhaps been handed down as an heirloom from family to family. There's a pretty good comparison genetically. You could look at Belle's dad and look at Artemis Q. Porter and say, yeah, yeah, that's his great great grandson.
Yeah.
Sure.
I knew
Um,
about the fan theory that the parents are the
Yes.
Frozen parents,
yes, I've heard that too.
Yeah.
who are not present on the ship when in Frozen 2. Like Frozen 2 chickened out of showing their dead bodies. So they could have ended up down in the southern seas.
It's
This is true.
too true, too true. Um, well, we've nailed the main 2, but let's talk about our favorite supporting characters. Uh, Randy, I'm gonna throw it to you first here. You shouted out a few, but do you have, like, a favorite supporting character?
All right. I'm gonna be honest here. I'm not gonna give you my number one because I've already had a chance to talk about him a little bit. So I'm just gonna greedily grab at another character. And I just want to take this opportunity to appreciate Rosie O'Donnell
Mm.
as Turk. Um, I really like Rosie O'Donnell. Um, I used to come home from school and I would often watch her talk show, like
Oh, yeah.
the replay in the mid afternoon. Like good family fun, but she wasn't afraid to throw a few punches, right? Like it was a nice little light stepping stone into some light political commentary for like a young child trying to figure this stuff out. Rosie O'Donnell with her life and her lifestyle and the time period that um she came up, where she was often being called out for things like her weight and things like that, taking all these public shots. I think sometimes people lose sight of like just what a talented performer she is, like
Mm.
such a great voice actor. And the life and energy that she brings to Turk, like it brought me back to the 90s, catching the Rosie show after school. I once took a field trip to New York City in 8th grade, and we went to 30 Rock, and they brought us onto one set, and it was the Rosie O'Donnell show set. So I did not get to sit through a live recording, but I did get to hang out on the set, and it was my first time in that space.
Whoa, very
Uh,
cool.
and I really loved it. So there you go. I also got to see from outside the SNL stage. However, the show was off season, so it was just filled with all these little cubicles for like Olympics coverage. So I didn't quite get the full effect, but yeah, still a great time.
Still, yeah, that sounds like a
Beautiful.
great trip.
Love that. Case, do you have a favorite secondary character?
I'm gonna shout out Kala specifically right
Mm.
now.
Mhm.
It's just such a wonderfully done
Hmm.
mother archetype right there. And we get the like Easter egg about Glenn Close because Glenn Close was the voice of Jane in Greystoke. She dubbed Andy McDowell
Mm.
in Greystoke, the Legend of Tarzan, the 1984 Tarzan movie.
Hmm.
So not only is she doing a fantastic job, she's Glenn Close. She's doing
Sure.
amazing work. But we get to also like the fact that she's Tarzan royalty on top of that. Um,
Incredible. I
yeah.
had no idea. What a great fact. Full of
Yeah.
facts coming out of this film tonight. Yeah, I'm so glad you shouted her out, Case, because, I was going to if you didn't. It's her tone of voice is perfect. You could imagine how comforting it would be to be comforted by this mother when you're having these angsty moments of turmoil like young Tarzan's having, rubbing mud all over his face.
Yep.
Uh, yeah,
Also,
she
I want to shout out that I think between the two so far that we have done, this movie actually crosses the Bechtel test by way of Turk
Mm.
saying, "Good morning, Aunt Carla. You're looking remarkably groomed this morning."
Yeah. Very good. I'm also grateful that you went to Glenn Close because it allows
Yeah.
me to turn to, Tantor.
Ah, yes,
Yeah.
I knew it.
Huge fan of this character from the moment we meet him as a young, uh, timid little elephant who's
It looks
questioning.
questionable to me.
Are you
Unbelievable.
sure this water's sanitary?
It's a piranha! Um, just brilliant. Like, not but it's not just in the voice performance. The character itself is such a joy throughout this film as, like, a fun, like, third to the buddy combo that is, Harry and Ron, I mean, Tarzan and Turk. Um,
Hmm.
he he balances them beautifully, and he gives them both the dose of truth when they need it, especially, Turk in the end when Turkina is pissy and she's gonna go and pout about, her heartbreak over her best friend Tarzan ditching her. It's Tantor who kicks her into gear and makes sure that they
Yeah.
save the day. Um, so I love the way this character matures over the course of the film. Love that he gets his hero moment on the ship and he gets to swim them back. Wayne Knight is brilliant here. I can't stand this guy in most of the stuff that he's in, not because he's bad in it, but because he's obnoxious and he's supposed
Yeah.
to be, right? Like Newman is, oh God. Not to mention his character in Jurassic Park, whose name is eluding me right
Nedry.
now. Ugh, awful. Awful guy. Nobody deserved, to be tarred in the face by a
Yeah.
dinosaur more. but he's perfect here. That the modulation he can do, with his voice
Mhm.
to get those perfect cracks, to bring in that sense of, neuroses as he's going off is just perfect. He's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for bringing up Tantor because, just a great goddamn character. I was thinking about this one that not only is Tantor the one who hears Tarzan's yell, but, like, is able to read in additional nuance, and that's because he's an
Mhm.
elephant. Like,
Yep.
in Tarzan 2, they actually say, like, "We have 20/20 hearing." And I like, it's actually a cute line in that one because it's like, "Oh, it's true. Elephants actually can hear, like, much lower ranges than humans can."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he gets to be the heavy. Like, elephants are really good swimmers, and him
Mhm.
able like, yes, you believe that an elephant that climbed up onto a boat is gonna win the fight with all the pirates. Like
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love, when he's speculating about whether or not I begin to think that Tarzan might be some species of, elephant. He loves a peanut. I love a peanut. It's unbelievable.
Chris, I'm also glad you just shouted out Wayne Knight getting to do this really lovable character because you're right. They always make him play a total sleazeball. Uh, my youngest son's been on like a real Toy Story 2 kick lately, so I've been experiencing him quite a bit in that film. And once again, he is the worst. He's lying. He steals Woody.
Mhm.
Just BSing everyone, even the cute little old toy restoration man. Yeah, it's nice to see him get this range and know that he can do it as
Yeah.
well. Well, speaking of Toy Story 2, speaking of Seinfeld, speaking of other culture, this is Media Lit, and it would not be Media Lit if we did not talk about what other literature or pop culture was on our mind as we were watching this film. Case, I'm going to go to you first. When you watch this film, what other literature or popular culture is on your mind?
I mean, this is the best place for us to talk about the actual adaptation nature of this. Like, we mentioned this a little bit, but, like, this is an adaptive work, and it I rather like Tarzan of the Apes, the book.
Hmm.
It's super flawed. It is super dated, but it is a really fun adventure piece when you get down to it. That is very creative and has created a character that I think, uh, despite the waning popularity that it has gone through in recent decades, it is an incredible work of pop culture that I'm very glad gets to be represented in movies like this. So where to start in terms of the adaptation? The story is much smaller and much simpler, and I
Yeah.
think that that is a good choice. They basically do the main arc of him ascending to being Silverback of the Apes, uh, which is sort of like the first like third of the book, uh, as the whole of the story, but then combine the Jane plot here. Um, and simplify the whole situation where he doesn't have to like they completely remove his actual heritage. Like, while we establish that he has human parents and he finds their remains, we never like deal with like who he like him as like Lord Greystoke, the like the current like lineage of the Clayton family. um and we don't deal with that as like an issue for him to be at odds with at odds with Clayton, because that would be uh, just an extra thing to deal with. Like, the
Yep.
movie like strips all of that out. We also don't deal with the whole like uh, he encountered a black man in the woods who murdered his mom, and then and then that caused him to have his own like quest of vengeance and so forth. So we don't deal with any of those issues, which is good.
Hmm.
Like, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I pointed out that that would be kind of difficult. Um, but it is fascinating to compare them when like, this is considered an adaptation of that book. Like, it says it's
Hmm.
based on Tarzan of the Apes, even though it is effectively a new Tarzan story, completely, like,
Yeah.
doing it, on its own. So that's the work that I sort of think about, even though it has also been many years since I've read it, so, I probably would have
Sure.
had more thoughts, like, when this movie first came out.
No, thank you so much for that. Because I have to confess, I've never actually read that text before. So I was really excited to hear what you would have to say about it. Chris, how about for you? Any literature or pop culture on your brain as you watch this film?
Nothing as smart as Case, but we've hit on a few of them already, right? Like, you can't not think of Beauty and the Beast when you see that tea set. That's very intentional, right? A very intentional Easter egg buried within this Disney film. But also, this is coming on the heels of 1995's The Lion King. We're in another African setting with beautifully illustrated animals. It's hard not to compare the two and think of one when you're watching the other, both with big, beautiful soundtracks and all that. So Lion King was very top of mind as I was watching this. And then quite randomly, I guess it's not random, but there's no story connection. I can't I can't not think of Brendan Fraser's George of the Jungle
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
watched this movie. Another really delightful, I refuse to rewatch it because it needs to live pure in my brain from my childhood, from, like, family movie night when I was a kid. Um,
George, George, George of the jungle.
Friend to you and me.
dude, has anybody been more perfectly cast than Brendan Fraser as George of the Jungle in that film? I have very fond memories of that film from the '90s, and this always calls it to mind whenever I'm watching. Um And I was a big Swiss Family I wasn't a big Swiss Family Robinson fan, but I think I've mentioned before I had this collection of, like, great American
Yeah.
classics, like, sort of, adaptations for younger readers of, like, Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer and Swiss Family Robinson and Oliver
Mhm.
Twist, and I read those a ton as a young lad, and so, yeah, the moment the treehouse was going up, even when I was 11 years old, I was like, "Oh, Swiss Family Robinson." So, yeah, despite nitpicking that sequence, of course, it's top of mind.
I love that you mentioned the Great American Classics. Do you remember the moment when you found out that you weren't reading the original book?
Great illustrated classics, that's what it is. Um, yes, I do, I was too old. I think it was when I was finally reading Huck Finn in school that I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, a lot more to this thing than I thought."
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly the spot where I was like, "No, I read that book," and then someone pointed out, like, "No, it's an abridged version."
Right. That Treasure Island, another, one of those illustrated classics that I had. Yeah, a lot more to those stories than
Absolutely.
those white bound classics would lead you to believe.
Perfect. I'm gonna go back to Lord of the Flies one more time, and it's really just one specific moment in Tarzan. Is he when he's at his lowest point, he's a kid, he's looking at his reflection, and he starts covering his face in mud. He does not like what he sees, he's angry, he's frustrated, he's distant. We've already shouted out Kala for masterfully pulling him out of that. We get that incredibly moving heart sequence that, echoes the Phil Collins song. We both have the same beating heart. It's beautiful. But because of Lord of the Flies, that moment hit me even harder because that moment when you wear the mask, when you hide your
Mm,
face, it's when you let go of your humanity. And like, yes, he's an ape, but he is a man and he has his humanity. I believe if he had covered his face in that mud and Kala doesn't step in, he's just like a feral child.
mm,
And
Mhm.
he's not someone who can be saved later on. So I just wanted to shout out the moment in Lord of the Flies when Jack, sort of the main, I mean, these kids are all victims to a certain extent, but we'll say the main antagonist, Jack, when he first covers his face in paint. He looked in astonishment no longer at himself, but at an awesome stranger. He
mm,
spilled the water and leapt to his feet, laughing excitedly. Beside the pool, his sinewy body held up a mask that drew their eyes and appalled them. He began to dance, and his laughter became a bloodthirsty snarling. He capered toward Bill, and the mask was a thing on its own, behind which Jack hid, liberated from shame and self consciousness. Uh,
oof,
and he becomes capable of doing so many horrible things. And yeah, I loved seeing Tarzan get saved in that moment.
brilliant. The teacher. That was wonderful, Randy. Love being in the classroom with you as always. That was a great example of why. Um, you know, I think we've done a nice job of really getting into this film, the themes, the successes of it from a few different angles. But just in case we've left anything on the table, let's just quickly go around the horn and check in with each other one more time. any moments or themes, filmmaking choices, any movie magic that you wanna shout out before we close this thing up? Case, we'll go to you first. Thank you again for assigning the homework.
Thank you for letting me indulge in my career of making Tarzan, the 1999 Disney movie, my brand. But part of the reason it's my brand is the goddamn soundtrack. And while
Yeah.
we have
Mm,
mentioned that it is all bangers, we this needs to be a space where we talk about Phil Collins doing going so hard. Didn't have to go this hard, and yet did amazingly. Son of Man is one of my all-time favorites. It's just a fantastic track. Strangers Like Me, so good.
mm.
You'll Be in My Heart is a song that I sing to my daughter.
Always.
Mm.
Like it's such a amazing soundtrack.
Yeah, we could do a whole separate episode on the soundtrack itself, right? Which maybe we will one day. Case, maybe you gotta come back and we gotta do that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, great soundtrack. Get a little NSYNC feature on there because it's 1999 doing the
Doing the
some
trash in the
beatbox
camp,
work
yeah.
on Trash in the Camp. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wonderful, great call out. I'm glad we didn't move on without talking a little bit about that end to end soundtrack. Absolutely bangs. Even when you're not watching the film, it's a great listen. Randy, anything you want to call out?
I mean, first of all, I had not seen the film before, but the song that made it through the ether was, of course, "You'll Be in My Heart." Was a song my wife and I both knew really well. Just like total tear jerking song, borderline emotionally manipulative, but it's beautiful and touching. And I'm so glad it exists, and I'm so glad that I've got the full context of it now. Yeah, Trash in the Camp, I also wanted to shout out.
Mm,
I thought that was an exquisite sequence, incredibly inventive, creative. And even if we're not at the height of Stomp, it was just good creative music making, and it works, and it distinguishes itself from those other films. It really ties right into I mean, I think, Case, you did speak to this a little bit when we were talking about the overall maturity of the film, but I really wanted to yes and you. I mean, at one point, I believe it's Turk who's like using a human skeleton as an instrument, and it's
yeah.
just
Yeah.
so twisted and irreverent, and I love it. So that absolutely ruled. And finally, just all the ways they made Clayton the worst.
Mm,
The way he cannot stop firing that gun when we meet him to just like absurd levels. The fact that Tarzan thinks the word Clayton means, like, gunfire,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
he's just the worst. Like, there's even this one line reading, maybe I am reading too much into it, because 'cause we've got this performer with this rich voice, but even the way he says gorilla, he's like, "Gorilla," like, there's this goriness to it. He's just the worst, and they did such a good job making me hate him.
Gorilla. Uh, yeah. Yeah, he's bad. He's a bad, bad dude. He does fire that gun a lot. And he even thinks he knows better than the scientists about, like, these creatures.
Mm,
Family groups, they'd sooner tear your face off than look at you. It's like, you're talking to the actual people who came here to shut up. Shut up. Um, for me, one thing I wanna shout out, small moment, I suppose, and I don't know why it's like I can close my eyes and see it happening, but maybe it's because as a kid, I was, like, um I was scared for Tarzan when they're on the ship, and they do this
yeah.
great bit of animation to
Mm,
to heighten the theme of, like, this world isn't his world, even if it's the world that maybe he was born to. He tries to climb, right? He
mhm,
tries to climb
Mhm.
that, big smokestack, and it's smooth metal. There's bolts along the rim of each sheet, but it's smooth metal, and he can't get a grip despite like, no one's more comfortable climbing than Tarzan. The rigging was helpful, he was climbing on the rigging of the ship, but when it comes to that, he swings out, he leaps to it, he expects fully to be able to just grab and climb, like every tree he's ever encountered.
yep.
Yeah, and there's like a heroic like swell of music right when he does it.
Yeah, and then he slips and he falls, and then he's netted and he's thrown into
Mhm.
the hold with everybody else.
Where he is
Um,
like like a caged animal,
yeah,
and they really do a wonderful job, like,
Yeah.
illustrating that.
that whole sequence is yeah, so many great choices within the script there.
Beautiful call out. Tells you that he really doesn't belong in that world. Although, let's face it, he would have parkoured the hell out of London.
Oh, dude, what a crushed Victorian London. You know how tightly grouped those buildings were? Uh, I do love just in one last little bit of, like, anti-colonialism, I don't know how true in what way this relates to the actual novel
Sure.
or previous, adaptations, but I love the choice of both Jane and her dad to stay, and they shed the trappings of the Western world, and they go um, full vine swinging, loincloth wearing, jungle life with
Yeah.
Tarzan, which is really beautiful.
Well, Chris, I think we did it. We are ready to move on to the extra
Mhm.
credit section. Uh, and we're going to kick things off with one of our recurring superlatives. And this is going to be the Bluey inspired superlative award. It's called the Calypso Spirit Guide Award. This is going to go to a character who channeled their inner shaman to gracefully nudge another character in a positive, sort of spiritual direction. Case, are you a Bluey fan?
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you don't require any further explanation for me on this prompt.
No, no, no. I fully get this one.
Perfect, perfect. So knowing that you get the prompt, Case, I'm going to go right to you for this one. Who gets your Calypso Spirit Guide award?
So it's between the two of the ones that we needed to call out before, just based on the characters. It's
Sure.
between Kala and Tantor. And I'm gonna go with Kala. Like, it's easier to go with Kala, but she, as you pointed out, nudges Tarzan along wonderfully. And ultimately, her acceptance of Jane is the thing that, like, makes that situation, like, work.
Hmm.
Because can you imagine if she didn't accept Jane, after Jane, like, finally, like, left the boat to come? Um, but it's certainly the moment where, like, the troop is ready to accept, Jane into their group. But like you had pointed out, like, her guidance of Tarzan, like, her having the heart to go seek out this crying baby, to save it from a leopard, and then to stand up to Kerchak and insist that she was going to raise it, and to do so in a way that is unique to her situation with Tarzan. Like, she can't just raise it the way other gorillas, and they make a point of that, very early on. Like, when she tries to put Tarzan on her back and he can't, like, hold on. And she has to learn to mother him in a different way than she naturally was going to. This is a character who is just incredibly nurturing. And it feels like a cheat to use her, but she's, like, kind of the obvious answer here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a perfect answer. And quite frankly, I think out of all the times we've done this superlative, this movie might have the most good answers, in my opinion.
Mm.
But let's see if that theory is true or not. Chris, who gets your Calypso Spirit Guide award?
So this is where I'm gonna go back to I would have said Kala, of course, Case. I'm
Hmm.
grateful you did, but for the sake of variety, and to your point, Randy, there's some options. I'm gonna go back to Tantor.
Hmm.
I think I highlighted that moment where he he isn't so gentle with, Turk, right? Like, "That's it. I've had it with you and your emotional constipation. Tarzan needs us, and we're gonna help him. You got that? Now pipe down and hang on tight. We got a boat to catch." Wonderful. Not gentle, but exactly what Turk needed in that moment. Absolutely the right thing, the perfect guidance. I wanna, though, go back a little bit
Yeah.
to just before that, and this is where I do think he showed such wisdom and the kind of sort of gentleness that we're talking about for this award. Um, it's before they've realized Tarzan's in trouble, but they've missed him. He's got on the boat and he's left, and they haven't had a chance to say goodbye. And Turk is still like lashing out. Go out and rot for all I care. Go. She's so upset. She's like throwing rocks.
Hmm.
What are you looking at? She says to Tantor, and he just looks at her and he says, I'm gonna miss him too. And it's just beautiful, and it's knowing, and it's when your friend says the thing that you can't say, when a friend reads you so perfectly, and I love that moment, so Tantor's my pick.
Beautiful pick.
I want to yes and for why Tantor is a good pick in this situation, because just to go a little bit further back, when Turk is super mad at Tarzan because she's been put in one of Jane's dresses, and is
Yeah.
being forced to parade around and draw the ire of Kerchak. Tantor like tries to calm her down by saying, "No, I find it rather fetching on you." Uh,
That's right.
like he tries to make the most of the situation, like even though like he's theoretically the anxious one that should be the most freaked out about being chased by Kerchak.
Mhm. Love
Now, maybe that comes down to the fact that he is in fact an elephant.
he is, in fact, very large.
Beautiful. No, I think both of your answers are perfect, and I thought about going with Tarzan himself. I think he does set a great example for others, but I'm gonna go with Professor Porter. Now, you could argue maybe he's like a little bit too instructive. They're on the boat at the end, and he's telling Jane, like, I can't help but think maybe you should stay, which is a nudge, but it's a little bit on the nose. But just the evidence we have that he has lived his life as a Calypso spirit guide award, like he's a walking spirit guide award. He is coming from Victorian England, presumably a man of means, presumably a man with possessions. Um, and he is pushing and supporting and nurturing his daughter's curiosity, her scientific intrigue and excellence. Uh, you know, Maybe they're not the richest family in the world. It's like very clear that like we are never going to pull this trip off again. Maybe it took everything that they had. But the fact that he would do that, I can only imagine how many people back home he pissed off treating his daughter this way.
Mm,
I mean, this is a time period where women who were intelligent and had intellect and wanted to study things were discouraged and pushed away from those fields and pushed
mhm,
toward marriage. Um, and you can tell she's been raised in it because she feels confident. She sounds confident. She feels that she deserves this. So shout out Professor Porter. I know like even, I did it kind of in the form of a joke earlier saying that he was sex positive. But even that,
yeah.
um, oh, close, huh? And like there's just this sort of like joy for her when he sees that interest in her face. So yeah, Professor Porter gets it for me.
Dude,
So
I think it's a great pick. I think that, you use the word curiosity, right? He nurtures that curiosity in Jane, he supports it, but I think what makes him so much like Calypso myself,
mm,
I think the reason Calypso is such a successful teacher is because that's the thing she encourages most in the kids is curiosity. She herself must be a curious person, right?
yeah.
Remaining curious. Even as she's grown and she's wise, she remains very curious. And that's what we see in Artemis Q. Porter. He's like delightedly curious. He's so amazed by the world around him. He's seemingly never afraid, but it's not out of bravery. It's just like he's just too delighted by new information and new experiences and this great big wide world that we
Hmm.
live in. Um, yeah, that kind of a person is always going to be a good guide for those around them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's Calypso. Really grateful we did that on this one. I know we kind of pick and choose per property, and that was right for this one. Um, but it's time to get to a media lit favorite. It's an animated property, so we're not doing props tonight. But when we do animated films, we get to pick a still. So, Case, we'll go to you first. You've got this wonderfully decked out pod den that you're coming to us live
Yeah.
from tonight. So, I imagine this is going to wind up on the wall somewhere in there. If you're going to add a piece of Tarzan to this great space you're in, one still from the film signed and given to you, what would it be?
So I th- I think that the still that I would want the most is when it's a still from in Strangers Like Me when Tarzan brings Jane up to the den of the parrots. And like there's this beautiful wash of
Mm,
sunlight as like
Hmm.
you get Tarzan making this like call and the birds are like all like flocking about. And I'm sure there's a frame in there where you get like a perfect like you probably don't get a shot of Tarzan's face because his back is to the camera. But it still would be like a really good shot of Tarzan like just like surrounded by nature and it's just like so gorgeous.
Yeah.
great, Paul. What a beautiful sequence.
Hmm.
Who's signing it?
I would get Kevin Lima to sign it, frankly.
Beautiful.
I am such like a big part of my brand on the internet is Disney's Tarzan and a Goofy movie, and those are two works that he directed. He has like this tiny filmography. It's like that and Enchanted and like 102 Dalmatians. Like it's a very small group of
Hmm.
movies. But two of my favorite movies of all time are on that list.
I was gonna say he's making them for you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Randy, what about you?
I've got I've got a few candidates here. I'm gonna follow my heart. I think the one that like just struck me in the moment the most is like I could picture it framed on my wall. It's that shot, Tarzan has been kind of like eating up all these little slide projections of like things from London. And at one point he turns back and we get those sort of etched lines of the illustrations from this early projector. They're like across his face. And I really loved that particular imagery. Just getting those etched images across his face was really beautiful. And as far as, the signature, um, that's the toughest part because I kinda want every signature I can get. Um, it's not particularly a Mini Driver moment, but I really wish I could get it. But yeah, I think, Case probably said it. If I'm looking for a shot like that, if I'm looking for the overall success of this adaptation, Kevin Lima is probably the guy. But if I can get me Mr. Professor Porter there, if I can get Minnie on there, if I can get Tony Goldwyn, I would take as much of the crew as I could get for sure.
Love that. You're going for the Murderer's Row ball.
Yeah, man, Murderers
Yeah,
Row.
that's great. Another good pick, another really, really good pick. Um, I'm gonna keep repeating that until I've made my really good pick because I find this too hard.
Yeah.
'Cause there are some intimate moments in the film that I would love to be able to capture. But there's also these moments of, like, dynamic action, and there's some
Mm,
really great scenes of, like, Tarzan, like, leaning against a tree holding the vine. He's, like, got the vine as an anchor and 2 feet on the tree, and you can even though he's holding his position, you can see, like,
mm.
all the kinetic energy kinda wound up in him and ready to burst forth again. Um, and then there's, like, of course, the iconic raising Sabor up
Yep.
over his head that
Mhm.
would certainly look cool on the wall, but I think I do wanna go more intimate. Uh, I want, Tarzan and Jane in the tree together.
Mhm.
It's like this beautiful blue because it's raining, right? They're getting drenched. When they meet hands, and it's
Yeah.
this important moment in the film. I think that probably captures a ton of the themes of the film and in the heart of it. So when it's on the wall and it's gonna prompt a conversation, uh, it's there. So yeah, Tarzan and Jane in profile, and they're hand to hand they're getting acquainted.
Beautiful.
And I'll take the 2 actors who are in that moment. It's mostly Minnie Driver that I want, but I'm not gonna leave Tony out just he's in the picture, so
Mhm.
Perfect, perfect. I do feel like I have to shout out my, honorable mention. I'm not gonna get it, but I wish I could. Just, like, the image of Jane's, like, broody drawing of her dark, brooding stranger,
it's very good.
in her sketchbook is pretty cool.
When she, like, reworks the eyes and the brow,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's really a cool sequence. Uh, Real quick before we wrap up, I can't believe we got this far. I just wanna give a special shout out, to Tony Hawk and everyone else skateboarding in the '90s. Um Tony Hawk was very specifically, somebody that they modeled the motion of Tarzan after. The extreme sports and skateboarding in general really informed the animation, the movement of Tarzan's physicality. So, shout out to Tony Hawk.
Perfect. Well, Chris, we've done it. It's another episode of Media Lit in the books. And I just wanna thank Case Aiken for being here, for assigning this homework, for bringing his intelligence, his insights, for helping us go deeper on animation and the source material here than I think we could have gone on our own. You always know you're going to get high quality, intelligent content with Case. And Case, thank you for bringing that to us tonight. We were so lucky to have you.
Well, thank you very much. Again, your effusive praise is uh, just so it makes me blush. We'll say that. But Randy, Chris, like I thank you so much for letting me come on and just ramble for an extended period of time about a topic that I love, because that is what podcasting often is, and
Mhm.
this is my brand, and I just very much appreciate that. That said, if you like the type of rambling that I have done, I would love people to find the things that I've got going on the internet. So I am a podcaster and a YouTuber, and so you can find the works that I'm doing. I host two ongoing podcasts. One is Another Pass, which is a movie analysis show where we talk about movies that we find fascinating but flawed, and discuss what could have been done at the time of production to make that a stronger work. And the two of you have been on for X-Men Dark Phoenix, and we've done other projects that like Randy, that you and I first connected over Solo. So like
Yes.
wonderful episodes to like go and reference on that one. And then also we also host Men of Steel, which is a Superman and Superman adjacent love letter show, which is my way of saying that we talk about Superman, but we talk about things that also I just kind of enjoy.
Sure.
Superman adjacent. So if it's doing the same kind of archetype, or doing a thing that we can in some sort of way get our head around in a galaxy brain sort of manner, to make the topic work, we will make it work. So that is wonderful. By the time this episode drops, we will nowhere be near. Actually, podcast time is weird. Podcast time is weird. So, the episode that Chris was on for World's Finest may be coming out around the same time as this episode. May not be. Who knows? Podcast time is strange, but I'm going to tease that one. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. You can find that at certainpov.com, or you can find that on YouTube at Certain POV Media, which I would direct a lot of people to, because YouTube seems to be where a lot of people are going for podcasts these days. And on that channel, we also do all kinds of videos. So those are wonderful things to check out. Otherwise, for socials, you can find me on most platforms at Case Aiken, except for Instagram, where I'm holding on for dear life to my AIM screen name from high school, which is Quetzalcoatl 5, Quetzalcoatl 5. Because if you couldn't tell from this episode, I was pretentious in high school.
Dude, the AIM screen name holding on tight is one of my favorite things about you, I gotta be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah, really great, Case. Thanks again for joining us. And folks, I want to reiterate everything he just shouted out. Take your time and go check out each one of
Yeah.
those properties. It's a great time, and I had a great time doing it. If you liked what you heard here, though, there's lots more Media Lit where that came from. We cover a wide variety of topics, thanks to wonderful guests like Case who come and assign us homework. If you want to hear more of what we do here at Media Lit, um, go looking for us on the interwebs. Search Media Lit Pod or Media/Lit, and just about anywhere you can find things like this: YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook. We're everywhere. We're everywhere you get your podcasts. Do me a favor. If you liked this, give us a rating, give us a follow. That will ensure that other listeners like yourselves find these conversations, and we want our Podling family to grow.
Chris, this is where I always have to thank you for pitching our show, and I've got to invite you to pitch all the other great work you have out there.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I do some stuff besides Media Lit. I'm also the co-host of Batman by the Numbers. That's a once a month venture we've got there on the popbreak.com. Go to the popbreak.com, a wonderful pop digital entertainment magazine that you can find on the interwebs. Hover over the podcast tab, and you're going to find Batman by the Numbers, a place where we go deep on the Dark Knight month over month. As Randy mentioned earlier, this year it's been all about Superman. We've done a ton of coverage of the Man of Steel, including the Superman film in July, some rankings episodes, some drafts. We're getting ready to talk about DC TV this month. We're going to do a little bit of Peacemaker coverage. What a great time that show is. So check us out there on Batman by the Numbers once a month on the Pop Break podcast feed. As Case mentioned, I had the sincere pleasure of joining him on Men of Steel recently. I don't get to talk about pure comic books
Mm,
enough, and getting to go and just talk about those funny pages was a blast with
nice.
Case. So keep an ear out for that episode coming soon. And besides those things, I'm also an actor and a voice actor. I'm a father and a husband. You can find me doing those things on Instagram or Blue Sky at Chris_Ingersoll. That's Chris spelled like Kringle.
And I'm your host, Randy Elaine. You can also find me on the Pop Break Podcast Network. We just recently finished up over a year of Black Sabbath coverage over on Pod of Doom. And as this episode drops, we will hopefully have recently launched our next music venture, now featuring Kris Ingersoll alongside myself and Justin Mancini as we explore the music of my favorite artist of all time, Beck Hansen. So be on the lookout for that pod. And I'm reading up on my Beck history, and boy, oh boy, am I excited for that one. All right, folks, that does it for another episode of Media Lit. Thank you for spending your time here with us, and we'll see you next time.